Breaking news. Senior reporter Rob Dorsett's here. You know what's coming. Tell us.
Thomas Tuchel is the new men's England senior manager. My understanding is he has signed the contract in the last hour to take over from Gareth Southgate and become his successor. And we're expecting a news conference at Wembley tomorrow lunchtime at about 1:30 when the chief executive of the FA, Mark Bullingham, will answer some questions and explain why the FA have made this decision. Not confirmed yet whether Tuchel will be at that news conference, but I'd fully expect him to be. And so that's an extraordinary situation, isn't it? We broke the news exclusively at lunchtime on Sky Sports News that England were considering appointing only the third non-English manager to ever take charge of the men's senior football team. And, of course, a German coach as well, with all of the extra controversy that will bring, with all the rivalry between England and Germany that goes back so many decades, Mike. But the deal is done. You asked me a short time ago how close this deal was, and we said, look, it could happen quickly because Tuchel is out of work, having left Bayern Munich in May, so he's a free agent, if you like. But you also asked me whether it could drag on a little bit, and I said, yeah, because he's going to have to take a big pay cut, at the very least, if he's going to take over as the England manager, probably half the €9 million salary he was on when he was in Germany in the Bundesliga with Bayern Munich. I'd expect him to earn £4.5, maybe up to £5 million as the main man, the top coach at the FA, but a significant pay cut for a very decorated club manager who's taking his first step into international management in one of, if not the highest profile international jobs you can get. This is a coup for the FA, without a shadow of a doubt, because he's won an awful lot of trophies, hasn't he, wherever he's been. At Paris Saint-Germain, at Bayern Munich, at Chelsea, he's won big trophies at all of those. That's why he's got this job, because John McDermott, the FA technical director, wants a coach, wants a manager who can get England over the line and win their first major international tournament since 1966. That is Thomas Tuchel. My understanding is he signed the contract. He is out tonight celebrating that fact, and there'll be confirmation from the FA at lunchtime at Wembley tomorrow.
Rob, 2 weeks ago, the FA hadn't even talked to Thomas Tuchel. Now he's the New England manager. Is this knee-jerk given what happened in the game against Greece?
I don't think it is, in fairness. I think what happened with that defeat in Greece that created a lot of ripples around FA headquarters. They were shocked that England could lose a game against Greece, having cruised through qualifiers and against, no disrespect, some of the lesser teams under Gareth Southgate and through his entire tenure. They were shocked that England had lost, and I think that led them to change their view about whether Lee Carsley, as the interim manager, was the right man going forward. And then, of course, Lee Carsley struggled in truth with some of the media duties and found himself tying himself up in knots at times with some of his answers to key questions, difficult questions from journalists about his future and what the FA were looking for. And I think that focused the minds of the FA bosses, certainly, that they needed somebody soon. They needed somebody to take the reins. They needed security and guarantees moving forward for the supporters, for the FA as an organisation, because the England men's manager is a figurehead and an ambassador of that organisation, but also for the players. The England players, I think, were starting to question whether Lee Carsley was the man who was going to get the job long-term. That's not good in a squad if you have doubts over whether the manager's going to be there long-term. So I think all of that brought their plans forward a little bit. And whilst Thomas Tuchel was always on their list of potential candidates, you're right, 2 weeks ago they hadn't spoken to him. And I didn't understand that. Thomas Tuchel, Jurgen Klopp, Graham Potter, Eddie Howe, all of whom we thought were on the England shortlist, the FA's shortlist for possible England managers, they hadn't spoken to any of them. They hadn't interviewed any of them. So what was the process? It seems as though they've moved pretty quickly to decide that Tuchel is the man they want. John McDermott deciding he wants somebody who's won silverware, somebody who's a big personality, which Tuchel absolutely is, who will be comfortable with anything we throw at him from the media. Whether or not his answers are the sort of answers that the FA want as the governing body of English football remains to be seen.
Well, that was going to be my question. Is he an FA man? Gareth Southgate was an FA man. Thomas Tuchel, he's fallen out with his bosses before.
He has, that's absolutely right, but he's won a lot of trophies. Gareth Southgate, for all his brilliance as an ambassador, for his brilliance in the way that he created a culture in that England team, created a love for the England team outside amongst the supporters again, and created a love within the England camp of players who wanted to play for their country. That was revolutionary from Gareth Southgate, you have to say. Despite all of that, he didn't deliver the ultimate trophy, which is what he wanted, it's what his FA bosses want. So they've ripped up the copybook here a little bit, haven't they? Gareth Southgate was an FA man. Thomas Tuchel is far from an FA man, and he's German, which will be controversial in many people's eyes. But, crucially, they clearly think the priority is to win a major trophy. And I think a lot of England fans out there might not like the idea that he's not English, and particularly that he's German. But if he delivers a major trophy, they will be absolutely delighted by this news. And I tell you what, we've had a poll on the Sky Sports app all day, split 50-50 since we broke the news at lunchtime about whether they wanted Tuchel to take charge. Well, from what I've seen on social media, an awful lot of positivity about this move from the FA to appoint a born winner, a natural winner, somebody who does produce results, particularly in knockout competitions. I think the England fans are quite happy with this decision, and they're confident he can get some results. Thomas Tuchel is the new England manager. And where we were this morning, where we were 24 hours ago, that's extraordinary. Yeah. Absolutely extraordinary, Mike.
I'm going to add to that positivity because we spoke to the England captain a little bit earlier. This is what he thought at the time, the prospect of Tuchel being the England manager.
Well, to be honest, I don't know. I haven't been told anything. So, yeah, until it's announced, obviously, I can't really comment. But we have to wait and see. Obviously, I know Thomas well from last year, and fantastic coach, fantastic person. So I'm sure the guys at the FA will contact me when they know more about it.
Do you think he knew?
It sounds like it, doesn't it? I thought that when we got that clip from our colleagues in Sky Germany, I thought that doesn't sound like an England captain who is completely been kept in the dark here. That sounds like an England captain who knows this man very well, Thomas Tuchel. Of course, Harry Kane had his best goal-scoring season of his entire career under Thomas Tuchel at Bayern Munich. But it was more of a fulsome praise than just somebody he knows. Harry Kane is very diplomatic. And if it was still, you know, a long shot about whether Thomas Tuchel was going to be the new England manager, I don't think he would have said that. I don't think he would have heaped praise on it, because he knows that would have put pressure on the FA. So, yeah, I think the England captain has been kept fully abreast of what's happening here, and pretty clearly Harry Kane is delighted by this.
What does it mean for the FA's pathway? They pride themselves on bringing through an Englishman to take the job, and they give it to Thomas Tuchel.
I think that's a key question. And look, we're hearing from the FA Chief Executive Mark Bullingham at Wembley tomorrow lunchtime, and that will be one of the first questions I ask him. Tell us about this process, because I had doubts a fortnight ago that the FA hadn't spoken to these big names who you would have assumed they would have done. Tuchel, Jurgen Klopp, Graham Potter, Eddie Howe. But is it an admission of failure of the FA's own coaching programmes if there isn't an English manager or a homegrown manager who the FA feel is suitable to become the next England manager? I think that's an absolutely fair and crucial question to ask. They've gone abroad to bring the best person in for the job in their eyes. Is that an admission of failure? I think it's a key question for them, Mike. I think you're absolutely right.
I've got a question about Tuchel. What's in it for him? He's taken a 50% pay cut to take the job. We all think it's the most prestigious job in world football, but I'm not sure world football thinks that. Why is he taking it?
I'll take you back to something Sven-Göran Eriksson, God rest his soul, told me. And I got to know him very well in his later years, after he left his job as England manager. And he said to me, I knew I would only ever be offered the England job once, and I couldn't turn it down. And Sven-Göran Eriksson was flying high with Lazio, had won a European trophy, had won the Serie A title for the first time in years. It was the high point of his entire club career, and yet he gave that up to become England manager, knowing that it was going to be controversial, knowing that he was going to get battered from all sides with the media, but he knew he'd only get offered it once. I think that applies to Thomas Tuchel as well. I think that applies to anybody who's connected with this England job, who has the opportunity to take it. It's not about money. It's about prestige. It's about opportunity. And if Thomas Tuchel is the man to deliver England an international major trophy for the first time since 1966, that German chap there will be fated in England for the rest of his days. At what other club could he ever achieve that? Where does he ever have that opportunity? It is the most prestigious job in England, in coaching. I still think it's one of the biggest jobs in world football. Clearly, Thomas Tuchel agrees, because he knows he would have had an awful lot of suitors at very high level with Champions League clubs in Europe. But he's decided not to wait for that. He's decided to jump ship and take the offer from the FA now and sign that contract. I think that says all you need to know about just how, in what high esteem this job is still held amongst managers.
Well, we know he's a winner. We know that. He has delivered before. This is what he's won. Is he going to win with England? Because only one person has ever done that.
Yeah, and that, look, It's very difficult to say, isn't it? The FA believe clearly that he is the man who can make the difference. And tactically, they think they've got a man here who can make the difference and turn those domestic trophies you're talking about there into a major international trophy. And that'll be the big test for him. Thomas Tuchel is used to being a club manager. So he's won all of those trophies on your screen now, where he's had day-to-day contact with the players, where he's been able to sign players to fill gaps. If he's got a weakness in any particular part of the squad, he can sign a player, especially at the clubs he's been at. Paris Saint-Germain, Chelsea and Bayern Munich, they have money to burn in the transfer market. So he's almost had whatever player he wants. Now he's restricted by availability, by nationality. Now, we know that Gareth Southgate had a major problem at left-back. He didn't have a left-footed defender he could play. Thomas Tuchel was going to inherit that. Lee Carsley's had that problem. He can't just go and buy a new left-back. And also, he's only going to see these players when there's an international break, so maybe 6 times a season. That's a very different role. And I think you have to look at football generally, and we're seeing a change in the guard of specialist international managers that are employed to do international jobs, because it is a different beast. So that's the key question now. Thomas Tuchel has proved himself as a club manager in 3 different countries where he's won trophies in every single country. Can he, in a very different environment, become a successful international manager who can win trophies for England? That's the question mark. We'll only know in the next couple of years, the 2026 World Cup in America, Canada and Mexico. Can he deliver a trophy for England there? He's backed himself, he thinks he can, and he's still a young man at 51. So this isn't the final job he's going to have in his career, which we often hear about with international managers. You get it later in your career. No, this is an ambitious guy. He will expect to stay in this England job for a long time and win trophies, but continue his managerial career beyond that. A stepping stone for him, not a stepping stone for the FA. A key appointment that they hope they've got right.
All right, he's won trophies. How will England play under Tuchel?
Well, look, wherever he's gone, he's played attacking, positive football. And we heard from people in his camp today who told us very clearly that his pitch to the FA when they interviewed him was to sell this idea of high-octane football. It will be attacking. He will get a lot of England's attacking talent onto the pitch. They will play with a high press. They will play with high energy. That's what he will expect of them. It will be an attractive style. And I think England fans will like to see it. It's the sort of football they want to see. It's what they criticised Gareth Southgate for not doing for so long. But just a word of caution, Lee Carsley tried that against Greece the other day, didn't he? Absolutely filled the side with attacking talent, and England came a cropper. They looked really, really open. They lost the game 2-1. In truth, it could have been 4 or 5-1. Gareth Southgate always said to me, I'm not a fantasy football manager, I'm the England manager. I can't crowbar all of that talent in, we have to have a system. Thomas Tuchel knows that. He's a brilliant tactician. So I think it will be attacking, it will be entertaining, England will score goals, and he'll keep them secure at the back. Can he make all of that into a formula that wins England a trophy, where he's kissing one like that, the European Championships or the World Cup? We'll see, won't we?
Let's hope so. Is everyone at the FA on board with this decision, do you think?
That, again, I think will be a key question for Mark Bullingham, the chief executive, when I speak to him tomorrow lunchtime at Wembley, because it was made very clear to me that Mark Bullingham wanted a homegrown coach for all the reasons we've discussed about proving the pathway for young English coaching talent to come through. That's why Lee Carsley fitted the bill for them so well, having been the under-21s manager, having won the under-21s Euros last summer, doing what Spain do, where the underage managers go on to be the senior manager and follow it through with the players that often they've brought through themselves. They haven't done that. The England bosses, the FA bosses, have decided that's not for us. And they've gone rogue, I think, a little bit here. They know they're going to get criticised. How's it going to be when England play Germany for the first time? Remember, Lee Carsley was criticised and certain newspapers suggested that he should be sacked from the England job before he'd even played a game because he refused to sing the national anthem, even though he played 40 times for the Republic of Ireland. What's Thomas Tuchel going to do when England play Germany? You know the tabloid newspapers, some fan groups are going to have a field day with that. You know that there will be criticism of the FA, that they've appointed a German in charge of the highest profile, the biggest job in English football.
Have we not moved on from those days?
I think we have. I think we have, yes. But clearly some elements of the media and some significant numbers in the England fan base don't think like that. They still feel very patriotically that the person in charge of the England team should be an English person. I don't buy that myself at all. And I think you look at the success that Serena Wiegmann has had with the Lionesses and go, there's a foreign coach who we've absolutely taken to our hearts and has delivered an international trophy. The FA will desperately hope that exactly the same thing happens with Thomas Tuchel. But they'll be bracing themselves. Mark Bullingham, the chief executive, will expect some difficult questions tomorrow about exactly what you've just said. What does this say about the FA's job that it's doing in bringing elite-level coaches through in the game? Why has the FA ignored the likes of Graham Potter, who's available, Eddie Howe, who's having a difficult time at Newcastle with new relationships with sporting directors there and that sort of thing, and they haven't even tried to talk to him? Why have they not tried to speak or promote some of those elite English managers, and instead they've gone, nah, they're not good enough. We want this fella, this German guy who's won trophies in the past. There'll be difficult questions for Mark Bullingham to answer on that, and difficult questions for him to answer and justify why they've gone non-English in appointing the men's England manager.
Speaking of difficult questions, I want to take you back to the media's, or some of the media's perhaps, reaction to this. Is he the sort of bloke who can deal with criticism in tabloid newspapers and on social media?
Absolutely he is. And look, you have to remember the situation he inherited at Chelsea when the Russian invasion of Ukraine happened and the UK government came out and froze the assets of key Russian billionaires, including Roman Abramovich. That was a very difficult situation for Thomas Tuchel to be in the middle of and talk about, and he was brilliant in front of the media in that scenario. How do you sound critical of Russia but not upset the guy who owns your football club? That's a very difficult balancing act, and a lot of people think he got it absolutely spot on. So I think that's impressed the FA. They'll think that he's got a big enough character and personality to cope with any questions that come his way. But he's a feisty character. He's a colourful character. He speaks his mind. We'll know that in the media, and we'll be desperately asking his opinion on everything football-related from here on in. And you know that the paparazzi will be following his every move as he goes about his normal life outside of football. And I think the exposure, the scrutiny will be bigger for Thomas Tuchel now than it has been at any stage when he was at Paris Saint-Germain, Bayern Munich, or even Chelsea, when he is the England manager. And there'll be a lot of people who want to see him as a German coach trip up. They'll be looking to trip him up. So he has to be very aware of that, and will have to mind his step in what he says and how he behaves everywhere in the game. But clearly the FA bosses have decided he's a big enough personality, he's a reliable enough character, he's a great spokesperson, that they want to take that risk, and they believe he can cope with it. But crucially, I go back to the fundamental factor here is he's a winner. And I think that's why the technical director at the FA, John McDermott, has decided to recommend that Thomas Tuchel is the next England manager because he wants to win something.
We've had winners before, though. Is this a gamble by the FA? Given the feistiness, given the nationality, is it a gamble?
It is a gamble, and it could backfire. I mean, we're running a poll on the Sky Sports app tonight, which is split down the middle, pretty much 50-50, about whether England fans think it's a good idea for Thomas Tuchel to be the next England manager. That's pretty ambivalent, isn't it? Now, look, football fans are fickle. They're never going to come down 100% yet and say, yeah, FA, you got it right here. But it is a gamble from the FA. He needs to get results, and he needs to handle the media well. I think he'll do both of those things. You have to be realistic in terms of England being in Group B of the Nations League. The first two games that Thomas Tuchel will take charge of next month are against Greece and Republic of Ireland. He ought to win those. Lee Carsley should have won those, and he managed to lose one against Greece. Thomas Tuchel will fully expect to win those with the talent that England have got in that squad. And he has spoken a couple of years ago about the talent in this England squad and how exciting it is. That's why he's taken this job. He wouldn't have taken this job if he didn't think he could deliver silverware for England. But yes, it's a gamble by the FA. Absolutely, for certain, it's a gamble. Whenever you go non-homegrown, it's a gamble. Whenever you go with somebody who's got the feisty personality that Thomas Tuchel has, it's a gamble. But the FA think it's a gamble worth taking.
Give us an idea of the timeline, Rob, because what time is it? 11 o'clock this morning when you got a sniff that this could happen, then wham. Here we are, what is it? Nearly 7:15, and it's done.
Yeah, so look, I had some conversations last night which kind of put me in the picture that there were maybe things afoot, that maybe the FA were getting closer to an appointment, and somebody suggested to me that Thomas Tuchel was at the forefront, and I was surprised. I had to do some digging. I had to talk to an awful lot of people in the game. The FA, by the way, I should say, said absolutely nothing to me. They've maintained a very neutral position throughout this entire process. Whenever I've spoken to them at a high level, they've said, Rob, it's a confidential process, we're not making any comment at all. So it's been trying to glean information from elsewhere. And by this morning, I was given a pretty clear indication that things were afoot and that Thomas Tuchel was the head of the list. We managed to check it out, and certain sources confirmed the information for me. We went with it at midday. And here we are, what was it, less than 7 hours later after we broke that news, and it's confirmed that Thomas Tuchel has signed the contract and is the next England manager. So it's happened pretty quickly, Mike, for certain. But after what I was told last night, I'm not surprised.
Yeah, incredible. All right, let's get some more reaction to this. Henry Winter waiting to speak to us. Henry, what's your reaction to this?
Well, I'm here at Ashton Gate, and I imagine that Lee Carsley will be on his way, certainly for the next under-21 games. I mean, it's slightly echo what Rob's been saying, slightly surprised. I mean, look, Thomas Tuchel is a very good coach, but he does tend to fall out with people. He doesn't really manage that well upwards, which is probably more of an issue at club level, where he's with club staff and directors on a day-to-day basis. Less so with the Football Association. So, no, it's going to be, it's never quiet with England. It certainly won't be quiet with Tuchel, but he's an outstanding coach. I mean, I was at the Champions League final. I mean, he's, when Chelsea won, and he is an exceptional coach, and England have got some exceptional players, and they should be excited.
Henry, the FA hadn't spoken to him 2 weeks ago. Is this, I've asked Rob this, I'm going to ask you, is this a knee-jerk reaction to that Greek oddity?
A very, very nice line, that Greek oddity. I might nick that as a headline, Mike. Very good. Yeah, I mean, it was an absolute mess, an apocalypse, call it what you like. I don't think so completely in terms of when the sort of the runners and riders were sort of mooted when Southgate stood down after the Euro final. Tuchel's name was very much in there, partly because he was available, partly because the FA wouldn't have to pay compensation. I think he's still technically working for Bayern, but his garden must be looking very nice, so they can get him quite cheaply. I'm sure they sounded out other people, Pep Guardiola, Eddie Howe. They probably would have preferred to have got an English coach, a homegrown coach. But the bigger issue here, I think as Rob was alluding to, is that there isn't a huge talent pool of domestic coaches. And that's something the Football Association, when they talk tomorrow, they're going to have to address, because the major countries, on the whole, by and large, certainly the European ones, tend to appoint homegrown coaches. And on the basis that international football be our best against your best, and echoing the players, it should be the same in the dugout. So there'll be an issue there. I'm sure we'll run into, as we always do, with Poppygate. I'm sure will appear. I mean, Tuchel's first game at Wembley is going to coincide with Armistice, so there'll be a lot of Poppy focus there. I'm sure he'll wear one. I mean, he's an intelligent, sensible individual, but I'm sure there'll be a few people sniping. But the England fan I've spoken to say, well, as long as he's not Scottish, we'll absolutely welcome with open arms.
But is it going to, I like that, is it going to be a problem, though, that he is German, given the rivalry?
Well, I think the history of England, apart from sort of 66 and maybe one or two other occasions, is that, if you can't beat them, sign them. There's an element of that. I think the broader issue is with should England be going for a foreign coach? I think the actual individual nationality is neither here nor there. We're all grown up. The war ended, 79 years ago. So I think we should really have moved on. And you talk to the England fans who are out in Germany at the Euros, they were incredibly well received by the Germans. The police were brilliant. They were well looked after, apart from the trains, which were hopeless. Otherwise, it was brilliant out there. So I think a lot of the England fans will warm to Tuchel, but everything in this game is about results. If England perform well and if England win, and this fabulous collection of England players we've got, you look at Bellingham, obviously he knows Harry Kane, and you look at Cole Palmer, and if he can juggle all these players and actually get some balance to the team, get some more pressing urgency, get some more incisive passing, and actually get the players to perform as they do for their clubs, then he'll be embraced.
Henry, are you excited?
Yeah, I am. Well, I'm pleased that the FA have got it done, because the FA have taken a little bit of a kicking. I don't think it's a knee-jerk reaction. I just think that, he's such an exceptional coach that, a lot of people will see it as a coup. I do feel sad for homegrown coaches, those who are emerging from St George's Park, those who are thinking of forking out whatever it is, 9-10 grand to do their pro licence, and thinking, is there a glass ceiling for English coaches? And the Football Association have imposed that. That is a concern that the FA are going to have to address longer term. But I think as a coach, as someone who's a bit of an alchemist who can work certainly in the short term, because Tuchel will fall out with everyone long term. I mean, he does tend to do that. So it's going to be quite fun to cover a few lively headlines, but England's odds heading towards the World Cup should definitely have shortened.
Henry Winter, fabulous to speak to you. Thanks very much.
Pleasure.